Oslo. Oslo. Facing the pain. If you ask most Americans, what is Oslo? I don't think many of them would be able to identify what country that city is in. Oslo, of course, is the capital of Norway, a Nordic country. If you ask most Israelis where Oslo is, they probably wouldn't know that either, but they would know the name Oslo, and it would resonate with them if they had been around in the 1990s and early 2000s in Israel, because Oslo was the name of agreements signed by Israel with the Palestinian Liberation Organization and those agreements had a strong effect on things in Israel then until today. The first Oslo Accord, the Declaration of Principles, was signed in Washington, D.C. under the auspices of the then American president and the representatives of Israel and the Palestinians, the Israeli Prime Minister and Yasser Arafat, who Israel chose to represent the Palestinians, the Arabs living in Israel. The second Oslo II Accord was signed in Egypt in 1995. And according to the Oslo Accords, a 5-year internment period starting in May of 1994, when Israel withdrew from Gaza and Jericho. A 5-year internment period was created, after which a final status agreement was supposed to be reached by May of 1999. And we have to, which did not happen. I'm about 5-hour car drive from Oslo now. I'm here on the west coast of Sweden in the early summer 2023. About 12 days ago, I flew from Oslo to Gothenburg, a short flight. And some days before that, I had flown from Israel, where I live, to Stockholm. And when I went through the airport in Israel, Ben Gurion, through that long entrance ramp that they have when you go down to the terminal, they always have some photographic display there of some historic event in Israel's history. And they happen to have, this time, a photo display of the highlights of the life of the Israeli Prime Minister, who had been Prime Minister in the time of the Oslo Accords and who had signed them, marking the 100 years since his birth. And it was conspicuous that they didn't show or mention the signing of the Oslo Accords with the Palestinian Liberation Organization, Yasser Arafat, which at the time was considered such a great milestone. Now it's 30 years later, and they choose not even to mention it or put it on his life story. I think that's somewhat significant in itself, because Oslo, as I said, is caught up with a lot of pain. And only by facing the pain can we hope to try to heal from it. There's a lot of pain all around on the side of Israelis. Many of the Israelis who supported the Accords, who hoped for peace, and the number of Israelis killed by terrorism increased fourfold after the Accords. Perhaps, I suspect, there's pain on the side of the Arabs living, some of the Arabs living in Israel, the Palestinians, that they don't have a autonomous state in Israel, in former Israel, parts of Israel, as they had hoped from the Accords. Everyone in their pain, but we have to face it in order to understand it, in order to try to heal from it if possible. I think it's significant that this past Sabbath, in our weekly Torah portion, we read the portion of Shalach, you should send spies, which recounts the episode in the history of the people of Israel when they left Egypt, and they sent spies, 12 spies, from the 12 tribes of Israel to recounter the land of Canaan in which they were heading. And 10 of the spies brought back a report saying, yes, the land is fruitful and beautiful. They brought back tremendously large fruits from the land. But they also said that the people are too strong and the cities are too fortified and we're not able to conquer it. And their report led the people to panic and say, oh, let's return to Egypt, let's appoint a leader and return to Egypt. And the Torah tells us that heaven was not happy about this episode, and only through Moses' intercession the people were saved from being destroyed. But it was decreed that that whole generation would stay in the desert for 40 years until all the adult males who had been afraid that they couldn't enter the land of Israel and conquer it, they indeed did not. They died off in the desert during those 40 years, and only their children, the next generation, and the women who had not participated in the panic, they entered the land of Israel and indeed did conquer it under Joshua. So I find it significant. It's been 30 years now since the Oslo Accords. I hope it doesn't take 40 years, a full 40 years, for us to realize the pain and deal with it, the pain that's been caused by this step. What brought this step about? It seems to me that there was a desire by the then Prime Minister and many other people in Israel who supported him to just have things simple. Just like it was simple back in Egypt, they had cucumbers and melons and fish to eat, as they say. They sought to be simple since the beginning of the Zionist enterprise. There was this tension which there's Arabs living already in the land of Israel, and the Jews, they're often attacking the Jews. The Jews don't know how to deal with it, and they want a simple solution. They want separation. They say, okay, we had a smaller state before 1967, when the West Bank was conquered from Jordan and Egypt, and the Golan Heights were conquered from Syria. We can have a smaller place again. Let's just give up part of our land and let the Arabs have an autonomous place there. they didn't really mean them to have a full state, evidently. They meant to maintain external security, meaning basically they were going to protect them for free, that we would pay with our Army, Navy, Air Force, and our soldiers to protect this autonomous region from any external enemies like Syria or Iran or who knows who else who might want to overrun it. And we'll give them a separate place there. We'll move out the Jews that have already moved into those historic parts of Eretz Israel, of land of Israel. And things will be simple. There was another Prime Minister of Israel in the year 2000, who was a disciple, so to speak, of the Prime Minister who had signed the original Oslo Accords. And he indeed tried to make a final status agreement with the Palestinian Liberation, with the Palestinian Authority under Yasser Arafat. He offered about 98% of the West Bank, but the offer was rejected. And his slogan, I remember, I was in Israel. I came to Israel in the middle of this. That's why it's been so much a part of my life. I came to Israel as a 24-year-old man in 1994. And I remember in 1999, when this man ran for office, when his party ran for office, I remember sitting on the bus stop in Jerusalem. His slogan, it said, us, them, us here and them there. Very simple, straightforward. Us meaning, let's give up this land. They'll be there, we'll be here, and things will be simple. But evidently, we're not meant to have things so simple in Israel, because this so-called simple approach brought pain and disaster. Evidently, we're meant to live with these contradictions and somehow resolve them. We're meant to have the Arab minority among us, integrate them into our society, give citizenship to those who want to be full, loyal citizens, and give civil rights to all the inhabitants of the land as individuals. Evidently, heaven wants us to deal with a more difficult problem and to resolve the contradictions, not shove them aside by carving up the land. So we need to face the pain. The more we face it, the more we'll be able to heal from it. The more we face the pain, the sooner we'll be able to heal.